Hello and welcome to the Empowered Expat Wife podcast. If you moved abroad following your significant other and are looking to create a fulfilled life on your terms there, this is the place to be. I'm your host Camilla Quintana and I'm so excited to be on this journey with you and to inspire you to create the kind of life abroad you truly deserve. Hi ladies, welcome back to a new episode of the Empowered Expat Wife podcast. Today, we're diving into the diplomatic world, which is very exciting. I have a lovely guest here with me today, Alexandra Paucescu. She will share with us her insights of diplomatic wife life, so to speak. She is originally from Romania. She's a management graduate with a master in business. She studied cultural diplomacy and international relations, which, by the way, I studied too. She speaks Romanian, English, French, German, and Italian. Wow. And she turned diplomatic spouse by the age of 30. She also published a book about diplomatic life, which is called Just a Diplomatic Spouse. And she writes articles and also gives lectures on intercultural communication. So welcome, Alexandra. So lovely to have you.
Hello, and thank you. Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm really excited about being here and talking to you today.
Yes, me too. We've been chatting a little bit on social media, exchanging thoughts, and I recently read Alexandra's book, which is basically a memoir of her life as a diplomatic spouse. It was also really lovely to see your description of your time in Vienna, which is my hometown, through the eyes of someone from the outside. That was really nice and made me remember so many places that you that you wrote about. So would you like to start by telling us a little bit about your journey as a diplomatic spouse? What has that been like?
Well, as you mentioned, Vienna, it was our first posting, and it will always be like a very special place in our hearts. First of all, because it's a lovely city and the people there are really, really nice, and they were very, very friendly to us. And second of all, because my son is born there. So I guess I will always have this emotional bond with Vienna because of it. So we started in Vienna. We were there posted for 5 years. Then we went back home, and now we are in Berlin. We are for quite a long time here, so it's our 6th year. So it's not normal, but in these times, what's normal anymore?
Right.
So we are actually preparing to move back home probably in summer. This is our journey so far. Of course, my husband was a diplomat when I first met him. He had some traveling before of that. I was also an exchange student in the US when I was in high school. So I had some international experience or experiences living abroad also from before. But it doesn't compare to the diplomatic experience that I lived for the last 12 years now. So it's a completely different thing.
It is. Yeah, I always say that moving out of your own initiative is a whole nother thing than moving for your spouse, where you cannot choose the country. And there's always this sense of, well, I went there for you in the air, right? Even if even if you would always do it again and you love your husband and you love your life, but there's always this little thought in the air of, well, I did this for you.
And of course, yeah, and of course, at the beginning, I think there's all this question: is it worth it? Should I go this road? I had this. I mean, I should be honest. I had this doubt at the beginning before marrying him, and I thought about it. I mean, am I ready to leave everything behind and travel? And I wasn't aware of a lot of things that I know now about the diplomatic life, and I didn't know where we were going to move. So there are a lot of uncertainty and a lot of questions that cannot be simply answered. So I had this, but I was lucky because I had some very wise people around me, and one of them was one of my uncles who said that you shouldn't ask yourself. I mean, you shouldn't worry that much about where am I going to move? Am I ready to leave like my house behind or the friends, or what am I going to do about work? And he said the only question that you really have to ask yourself is, am I ready to leave everybody and go with only one man? Is he enough for me? And I thought about it and I decided, yeah, he's enough. So this
Yeah,
is how it started.
I remember that part, and I was actually gonna just ask you about that now. Of your uncle, that's something that I underlined because I thought it was a really wise advice. Don't worry about all the material things you leave behind. Worry about the people, and can this one person compensate? I think that's a really wise tip that I would probably also give to someone, who's just starting out on this journey. And yeah, it's a difficult question to answer. I think, life is so long. When you're madly in love, it can seem like one thing, and then, stuff can happen, and all of a sudden then doubts can creep in. But it is an adventure nevertheless. So I guess maybe it's not so much about doing it for your spouse, it's about doing it for yourself and saying, yes, this is the life choice that I am making right now, to move with this partner that I love. That's probably a good starting point. What do you
No,
think?
I think material things are something that we should not think so much about. And unfortunately, nowadays, a lot of people think first about this. And I thought, okay, I have a very nice house. I have basically everything I need here. But there are things that they will be here still in 5 years, in 10 years, if I change my mind. So I give it a try and see. Maybe the life that I'm going to experience is going to be much better or much more interesting. And it is.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I mean, especially moving is really, really difficult and takes a high toll on me. I'm a deeply emotional person. So when the time comes when we have to move from a place to another, it doesn't come easy to me. But I always try to focus on the good parts, to remember the good days, and to remember all the opportunities that I had because of this life. So I try to put this into balance.
Mm-hmm.
So, and especially the last year with everything that happened, as you mentioned, I published a book, and then I started writing about it, mainly about the diplomatic life and the diplomatic realities. I would have not had this chance if I wasn't in that position. So I'm deeply aware of that.
Yeah. Yes. And so in your book, you describe the scene, which really stuck with me, where someone who was disappointed to find out that he wasn't speaking to your husband, the diplomat, said to you, "Oh, she's just a diplomatic spouse," which inspired the title of your book. So, what would you like this person and any others like him to know about who diplomatic spouses really are?
I'm not sure, maybe he wasn't bad intentioned or something. It wasn't a mean remark, but it came in such a way to me that it really bothered me, because I realized how people look at us. I mean, okay, you are the spouse, so basically you have no paid job, you have no opinions, you you don't count, basically. This is how I perceived it. And with everything, I also with what I wrote in the book. And I was also very glad that a lot of other diplomatic spouses who read the book said that I perfectly portrayed the feelings and what we all go through. So it's not just me, which is very comfortable at one point, because you know that, okay, there are others who went through the same situation and have maybe the same feelings. But also, for example, I'm writing, and I have been writing for almost a year now, this series of interviews with other diplomatic spouses, ladies that most of them I have never met in person, just online, and have seen their activities and what they do. And they are all remarkable people with a lot of talent. Most of the time it's unrecognized, or it's not enough recognized by the others, and they surely deserve some recognition for what they do, besides being like the traditional diplomatic spouse, always elegant, always nice, always smiling, raising perfect kids. And as I said there, I mean, there are a lot of cliches when it comes to this title. We all try to live up to these expectations, but also we try to do something else, to have something of our own, to express maybe artistically, or to have an unpaid job, but it's still something that we do. And we are, everybody is good at something. You just have to pay attention, to listen to your heart, and to know to have the courage to start something new, completely maybe different from what you studied or what you've done before in a formal career.
Yeah. Yes. And also, I think sometimes it's the confidence. It's about how we think of ourselves. The remark, maybe a dismissive remark that we may get as the spouse of the person who's sent out, that can really hurt, or it can be bothering you. But really within yourself, that you have a lot of worth and you bring a lot of value to the table. So I think also it's working on our own mindset and not fall into this trap of thinking that what we do, just because I just act like I was a diplomatic spouse here. What you do, is less worth just because it's not paid for in the traditional sense. So I think that's also really important for diplomatic and expat wives alike, to just know your own inner worth. And that will give you the confidence to then say, hey, I'm actually really good at something that, is not being a diplomat or a lawyer or a doctor, but it's really cool. And I'm brave and courageous and I put myself out there. And so bravo to everyone who's doing that.
I discovered a lot of ladies who have amazing talent in different branches. And they are painters, they are psychologists. They do a lot of things and they try to stay relevant, to have a contribution to the society, also volunteering for a lot of causes. So, but because this kind of life, as I said, at some point it can be deeply emotional and it gives you some difficult times, especially when moving. And it's really easy for somebody to hurt your feelings. It's easy with just a few words that maybe for somebody don't mean too much. But for you, it's like somebody says something, just doesn't think properly or doesn't think too much about what they're saying. But for you, it means a lot and they can hurt you tremendously and they can stick to your head for years. And so that's why I always say, think twice before you speak. And that's why we have just 2 ears, 2 eyes, and just one mouth. So we should maybe talk a little bit less, think about it, and try not to hurt anybody's feelings, because it's so easy to do it. And it's such a pity.
And there's so much ignorance out there as well. I think people are just not aware of the many ways in which they can actually hurt someone. And like you said, we all know that. From really silly examples, even something that a waiter said, or someone who, in traffic, who just got really impatient with you, that can stick to us. That can really do something with us. So I wish there were more awareness of people as to how they hurt other people's feelings as well.
Right.
So let me ask you, do you have any role models among diplomatic spouses? Maybe someone that has guided you a little or that you've looked up to, or if not, are there certain qualities that you really treasure in other diplomatic wives and that you notice are, very beneficial for this role?
I guess I was lucky in this kind of life, or this phase in my life, because ever since we were in Vienna, I was lucky enough to meet all these ladies who greeted me very warmly. Not all of them, but some of them, and tried to help me, because I was at the beginning. And for somebody who's from outside, maybe they are not aware, because diplomatic life, it's highly hierarchical. So for the diplomats, it's like similar to the military. So the more you advance into ranks, the more important you are, and also consequently the spouse is more important. So and it has maybe a bigger role. That's also an aspect, because when you are at a certain stage, when you have to represent the country and to accompany your husband, you actually don't have time for anything else, because your whole agenda is full of diplomatic events that you are required to go to. So there's also an aspect to it. But to come back to your question, I had these ladies who were maybe more experienced than me. They had lived in this diplomatic world for a lot longer than I had. I certainly had some ladies that I met when I was in Vienna at the United Nations, because I was volunteering there for an NGO, and I met some ladies who are not actually wives of diplomats, but they were wives of United Nations officials. So it's like similar, and they were like extremely wise and very kind to me, and they they shared a lot of experience, not only about this kind of life, but also about life in general, about raising kids, about your approach to life, to volunteering, to everything. And also when I moved here in Berlin, I was lucky enough to meet at least 2 and 3 ladies that will always come in my mind. They were very, very nice from the very beginning, and they are in a far higher position than I am right now, considering diplomatic ranks or things, considering the husbands. And they have a lot more experience. But they took me under their wing, let's say. One of the wisest thing that I heard from one of them is that while you advance into this diplomatic ranking, or while your husband actually advance, you should never confuse the attention that you get because you are somebody's wife with the attention you would normally get from somebody because of who you are. And I think that's a mistake that some still make. Yeah. They tend to forget that they receive a lot more attention because they have a title, not because they are very interesting as persons.
Yes.
Maybe it's a little bit harsh to to say it, but it's true.
It can be
never forget it.
It can be a little bit harsh. It can also be really empowering, right? It can be empowering for those who aren't so far up when it comes to hierarchy, but also for those who think, well, I don't want to be defined by my spouse, because times are changing and have changed.
Yeah, and that's why basically I think a lot of ladies nowadays, they try to have their own way, their own career, their own achievements aside from the diplomatic world, or maybe complementing it, but doing other things. Just discover something that you're good at, and you don't need the title, you don't need the diplomatic immunity or the diplomatic aspects of your life to do it. It's something completely secret.
It will require you to think a little bit outside the box and to be courageous,
right,
and probably, overcome some limiting beliefs or some even societal and cultural beliefs that you have, that what you're doing right now is not as significant or not worth pursuing. But I think, as you said, that is really the key to creating this very balanced and also independent life within the structure of being very dependent, on your husband's position, on the destination you're sent to. So I think creating this little bubble around you where you can have your own independence and your own thing, your own accomplishments, that is so vital. And
yeah, like society can be so judgmental, unfortunately, and it usually rewards only the people who in everybody's eyes are like achieved. This can be damaging for your own inner peace, first of all. And most of the times it's kind of artificial. So there is certainly more to a person than the title, a career title, or the title on a business card.
These are very patriarchal structures. And yeah, I think we women need to also show and believe and show other women as well that there are other accomplishments in life apart from money and position and recognition and all of that. There are other accomplishments and other riches in life as well, and just really honor them.
I think we are living still in a world today where life of a woman is certainly it's a lot easier than it used to be hundreds of years ago, but it's still not simple. Let's put it this way. And it doesn't matter if you talk about profession or if you're just a spouse. I think it's the same. I just read yesterday this analysis from, I think it was from New York Times, and they said that they studied it and they said there are less women CEOs than there are CEOs with the name Joe.
Oh my goodness.
So I guess this says it all.
Yes. That's true. And so something else I wanted to ask you is that I've been told that by diplomatic wife clients that I've coached is that their expectations of what their life as diplomatic spouses would be like clashed then a little bit with what it was actually like. So I know this depends a great deal on, the sending country and also the destination that you're being sent to. But what would you say as a word of advice, maybe to someone that is starting out? What would be a realistic expectation to have about life as a diplomatic partner?
Maybe to me, it wasn't that much of a shock. I had no expectations at all. I didn't know what to expect. So I was new to it. So for the first few years, I was really, really good with it because the kids were very small. So I had my hands full all the time. So I didn't have time to think much about my condition, what I was expecting, what I didn't get out of it. But when the kids got a little bit older, so I had a little bit more time to think about myself and about everything else. I would say that what bothered me, it was really difficult, especially at the beginning, to comprehend or to accept, was the fact that and just to give you a small insight from before, I moved, I was working in sales and marketing, but for a construction company, and I was executive manager of the company, so I had a pretty good position. I moved. I didn't have a paid job anymore, and I wasn't aware of all this diplomatic structure in this world, and so I guess it comes to a very big shock when you go somewhere and you realize, okay, I don't have a job, so I'm not officially recognized like I have a value in this like a professional field, but I'm not also taking into account in the diplomatic world also because I'm wife of a junior diplomat. And I think this is extremely difficult. It was to me, it was difficult to accept or to face it. I realized also that I needed to do something else in order to feel good about myself, and to try to put all my experiences that I had from before or all my energy into something else where I should be valued. I would get satisfaction out of it and get the sense that I still matter in some way. I don't know.
That is so important. The feeling that you're making an impact, which we all are, and we are all capable of making even a great impact. But I think that is a key ingredient, feeling that you are making an impact and having the sense of accomplishment. It doesn't have to be through a paycheck. It can be just lying in bed. This is like the best feeling, right? Lying in bed at night and thinking, oh, wow, I've done a great job today at whatever it is.
Yourself, right? And this is what volunteering offered me from the very beginning. I mean, this is why I really liked it, and I still like it, and I still do a lot of things now. I work with UNICEF, and I coordinate a group here in Berlin. It gives you this automatic sense of usefulness. You've done something. You helped somebody. You were capable of changing somebody's life, or maybe in a very small way, but it still counts.
And I also think, if you can, because most diplomatic spouses are highly educated themselves, and like you, they've had a career of their own beforehand. And so if you can use your skills and your expertise in a volunteering position, maybe that is actually an ideal combination, feeling like everything you did leading up to this destination that you're currently at has made sense and is all coming together, because now you can use your, let's just say, legal background at a position within an NGO or a charity, whatever it is. So I think if you can combine that.
And I know a lot of examples from a lot of diplomatic spouses are volunteering everywhere in the world, and they've done tremendous amount of good in a lot of ways. So you can do it, but you need some encouragement at first, and you need somebody who maybe guide you at the beginning if you're new to it. So after a while you get used to it, and you know better how to find your way when you move somewhere, because it's very challenging, especially when you move somewhere you don't know anybody, you have a new house, no friends, maybe you don't know even the language, so it's completely difficult to find your way into the new society, and also to find like groups and volunteering. And just to give you an example, it was completely difficult and frustrating at the beginning, also for me in Berlin, because we moved here and I knew the way I wanted to go. So I sent, I think, more than 100 resumes in the first few months to different NGOs, and I just offered my volunteer help. I mean, I told them about my experience, previous experience, who I was, and what I was willing to do, and I barely got any replies. It wasn't very encouraging, you know. So you have to be strong enough to don't lose your motivation, to keep trying and keep looking for opportunities, keep knocking on doors. It doesn't matter if they open or not. Don't be discouraged, and go on and go on. So at some point maybe you get tired of it, or to tell you honestly. So at some point maybe you said, okay, I give up. I just enjoy life, and I don't want to do it anymore. So but for me, I still have energy. So I don't know how it's going to be in 10 years or 15 years from now.
You're doing so much great stuff. So I think that's great. And just as I said before, thinking outside the box and looking for opportunities that you can do wherever you are, or even take with you to different destinations. If you can find something, and I strongly believe there is something out there for each and every one of us. We just have to find it. And that is really the answer to many problems that we otherwise have and experience and create as well.
I would also add that the husband or the spouse, I always say the husband, but I always have a lot of examples which is the other way around, which where the woman is the real diplomat and the spouse. And I think actually in this situation, it's even more complicated, and people are even more judgmental. But to come to my situation, I think it's extremely important to have the support of your spouse, or of your husband, whenever you feel discouraged, or whenever you feel like, okay, what's the point anymore? Nothing is going the way it was supposed to, or I hoped it would go, and I cannot do it anymore. It's really, really important to have a supportive husband who understands what you're going through.
Yes, I think so too. Absolutely. So what would you say now? I'm just thinking to any listener who says, well, actually, my husband is not so supportive of me, be it because, he considers that you should not even have other aspirations because diplomatic life is full of obligations for the spouse as well, and of events. Or maybe he just doesn't have this empathic side, which is also just the character trait, and does not understand why certain things are so hard for you.
I think it's certainly more difficult, as I said. I mean, it's really important to have a supportive shoulder at home. But you can always find support in others, especially in the expat or diplomatic community. I've met, especially for the last year and a half, let's say, a lot of ladies, as you are, which are not diplomats, but they are expats, and the situation and the experiences that we go through are quite similar. And for sure, they can understand you. And unfortunately to say, they can understand you much better than old friends from home. And I discovered that, sadly, at some point, because people who don't move and stay in the same kind of environment for all their lives, or they are still your good friends, but they cannot possibly understand exactly the feelings that you're going through, and they cannot possibly relate to you 100% because they haven't been through this experience. So somebody who's been through this and who lived the same kind of life can for surely understand you a lot better. So try to find support in these individuals who went through the same things and understand, and maybe have more experience and can guide you and can tell you what should you do to feel better, to where could you look for opportunities.
Yes, I think that's excellent advice, to really look for the sisterhood of women who know what you're going through. And because I know that sometimes can be a little uncomfortable to speak to other diplomatic spouses, in a certain construct where, after all, you are connected through your husband's work. So you may not want to rant too openly with them. If that is the case, then, as you said, there are other expat women probably around, or otherwise. I've made such lovely friendships online with women that I have never met in person, but who know so much about me, and I know so much about them. And I know that the moment that we will meet each other, it will be like, oh wow, this woman has been my good friend and my support for a really long time. So online is also a great opportunity to connect with like-minded people. So now, speaking of support, I know that many diplomatic partners actually feel insufficiently supported, let me say, by the system, right? Especially when it comes to issues like being able to work abroad, employability, also when they go back home, retirement, which they're often not considered. I know this also depends on the country that sends you, and then divorce, which unfortunately, is also a very real reality, let me say, that many diplomatic spouses go through. So, are there some defects, let's say, in the system that you wish you could bring more awareness to, and in order to improve a diplomatic spouse's well-being?
I would say there is also room for better in anybody's experience. So, from our point of view, I would say that I cannot really complain because I heard realities from other countries, from other diplomatic spouses coming from other countries. And I think, especially when it comes to like pension, future, or I think we are quite well looked after. So in this sense, I cannot complain about it. But once you embark in this kind of life, you have to know from the very beginning that you lose, maybe not entirely, but you lose your independence, like financially, first of all. So you should know this from the beginning. So if you're not ready to do it, better think it over, maybe change your mind. I always see like a diplomatic couple like two partners. So if you embark in this kind of life, you have to be sure that your spouse is really your partner. So you are two in this together. You have to have mutual support all the time, and you have to understand him, and he has to understand you, and you have to both of you have to provide for the other, in not only financially, emotionally, and so all this together. I come back to the same thing. So the partner is the most important. You have to know who you go on the road with from the very beginning, and to set some rules from the beginning so that you don't have all this frustration for later. Because if you have these feelings that are maybe covered at some point at the beginning, when everything is nice and everything is, we are all young and happy and optimistic, it comes at a moment in life and all this will resurface. And I think it's much more difficult to cope with them 20 years later if you didn't deal with all this from the very beginning. So try to think of all these aspects from the very beginning and make it clear how you stand, what you will do, how your life will be in the long run, and how you will, how do you see yourself at 60 or at 50, or when you go into retirement, and all these aspects.
And may I add, I'm just thinking, if there's anyone listening who says, well, it's been 20 years, so I can't, now create new rules for the marriage because I didn't do so in the beginning, or I wasn't aware of the issues that I actually wanted to cover. That also happens, right? Because when we're young and in love, we don't know what married life will be 10 years and 20 years from now. But I think the beauty of this international lifestyle is that you actually do have many new beginnings. Potentially every 4 years, let's say, you are at a different destination, and that can be the momentum and the moment for you to say, okay, before we go to this next destination, I want to reestablish some ground rules. And for me, it's really important, this and this and that. So even if you've been married for a long time and you didn't have this conversation, then maybe use your next relocation to have this conversation and to grow closer to your partner in order, like Alexandra said, because you're really in this together, even though just one has the diplomatic title and one is getting the paycheck, but really it would not work without you. So that can also give you some confidence, right? To say, we are totally in this together. Teamwork.
Everybody has its own part to play. So maybe not earning the money, but you are providing the emotional support and the family environment that the other one needs to, in order to succeed in his career. So it's a mutual thing, and it's a teamwork.
Yeah.
As you can.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, this has been so great. It was so nice talking with you and just letting the conversation flow and touching on so many subjects. I think it was really insightful, and I hope that our listeners are taking a lot of, first of all, understanding, support, encouragement, and inspiration from this conversation, which I'm sure they will. And now, for anyone who would like to know more about you, get in contact with you, follow you, can you tell us where is the best way to get in contact with you?
I would say these days I'm most active on Instagram under my name. So it's Alexandra Paucescu. I also have a Facebook page which has the same name as the book. So it's just a diplomatic spouse. So they can also find me there. But I'm more active on Instagram these days, to tell you the truth. And through this, and also I received, because of these platforms, which are open to everybody, I received a lot of messages from people which I didn't know before, and they just felt like writing to me after they read the book. And this was really, really nice. And it was, of course, a nice surprise and a very encouraging sign that I should maybe get involved in other projects. I don't know. And I'm writing a children's book right now. So
Wow.
I
I
moved
that.
maybe a different side, but it's still related to me and to traveling. And I'm not saying much more, but I hope it's going to be a nice one. So I'm still doing.
Really looking forward to that. Please keep us updated about this. And I will obviously post all of the links to Alexandra's online virtual spaces in the session notes. And yes, and then please really do get in contact with both of us. It's just so nice to know that you're speaking to someone and to get to know these people that you're speaking to even better. All right. So thank you so much, Alexandra. Have a lovely day. And to all of our listeners, I will be back with you next week. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to share this episode with your expat besties and show me some love in the reviews. Want more juicy content designed for expat wives? Then head over to my website, www.camillaquintana.com, or follow me on Instagram and Facebook at coach.camillaquintana.